So I've obviously not seen any of these questions because you all just wrote them right now. And our first one okay. I was like, where's the question part? Okay, I have to be a little patient with that. Here's what the individual wrote. I just want to shut off the news and live in my own little world. Spiritually, it doesn't feel like the right thing to do, especially if I want to be informed and stay in community with others. How do I resolve this internal conflict? I want to thank you for submitting this question. This was actually soon after our November elections. This was the number one thing I was encouraging people in our community to do, which is change your relationship with the news. I am well aware, I was in this pattern myself, that in the run-up to election season, I got absorbed in news and political happenings in a way that was much greater than perhaps my typical day-to-day life. And that season now being over, as it is a good and warranted thing to reevaluate and change our relationship with the news, political news in particular, given the upcoming inauguration in a couple of weeks and a well-known and well-established presidential leadership style. I would also say, in light of that, it is a good and healthy thing to change our relationship with the news. Now, what do I mean by that? Yes, you can decrease the amount of engagement. I have lived in Washington, D.C. I am a political junkie. I'm not going to stop paying attention to the news, as I would imagine is the case for many of us Unitarian Universalists. But here's what I do. Rather than, I will occasionally still go and listen to a cable or television news broadcast. But I have digital subscriptions to things like the Washington Post and the New York Times, and I can choose when I'm going to read the headlines and when I'm going to click on a headline and go deeper into the story. That agency is fully mine. I can choose to do that when I feel I have the fortitude and the energy to do so and engage with a particular piece of news. And if I don't have the fortitude and energy to do so, I don't have to. I can notice the headline and I can say, I think I'll come back to that. Later in the day, maybe in a couple of days, maybe never. I've also shared with some of us, my spiritual teachers, I work with 3 or 4 pretty deeply. Not a single one of them has a newspaper subscription or watches broadcast news. Not a single one of them. And they're in very disparate traditions. They're not all in the same religious spiritual tradition. They have found in deepening their own sense of grounding, their own sense of presence to other people and to the realities of being human, that they actually don't need to track any of that. In fact, one of my spiritual teachers will say, it comes to me, because everything that is happening, he winds up hearing about it. Other people notice and they're wrestling with these things, and they will tell him what's happening in the news. So you can make decisions about this. I want to encourage you to claim your own agency. We are not necessarily held hostage by broadcast news or television or cable news. We have the ability to choose how much we want to engage, and please exercise your ability, your right to do so. So, by the way, I don't see it as an internal conflict. I view it as taking care of yourself and managing the healthy use of your energy. Okay, next question. How do we continue to advocate for each other, one another, in the spirit of love when opposing views seem overwhelmingly hateful and violent? Okay. This is complex. So advocate, that's one of the words here, advocating. That spirit of advocating is part of what's not working for us as a society. Advocating involves already an energy. In Buddhism, they would say this is aggression, an energy of pushiness, of confronting, of putting out there in a way that I must convince or be clear that the other position is outright wrong. That position of advocating can be aggressive and confrontational. Now, the second part of that same sentence says, in a spirit of love. Actually, we could delete the word advocate and just say, how do we continue to show up in a spirit of love? You don't need the energy of advocating, of convincing anybody that they're wrong. That's actually not necessary. So how do we show up in the spirit of love? I would say that I'm adding my own language. I'm editing your question, forgive me. That's actually what I'm doing. How do we show up in a spirit of love to care for and be of support to those who need it? Now, often those are individuals who, for any number of reasons, might be marginalized by our political processes and or the system and or the culture that we live in. That is a good and necessary thing. And we can show up in a spirit of love and clarity that is firm and unequivocal and not confrontational, aggressive, or what happens with that confrontational energy, there's a demeaning quality to it. That clearly you haven't thought about this issue well enough, because if you did, you would see it my way. People pick up on that. That's partly why our state of civil discourse isn't civil. It's not actually civil. People pick up on when they're being treated in a condescending manner, in a demeaning manner. So, let go of that. I invite you, to the greatest extent possible. I have to wrestle with this too. To the greatest extent possible, try to let go of that. How do we show up with the spirit of love? With clarity, conviction, in an unwavering manner, in support of those who need us to do so. That's how we do this. And then I think the second part is the acknowledgement of opposing views. We're not doing very well as a society in listening. Our listening is often in pods of familiarity, groups where there are relatively like-minded people. The real work of democracy, of building a society where we're actually present to one another, is how can we be lovingly present and open to understanding the logic and needs of those who are vastly different than us. Doesn't mean we have to agree with them, but can we understand the social location? Can we understand the experience? Can we understand the circumstances that people are grappling with that are leading them to a set of views and perspectives that are quite different than our own? That's the work, and it does take work. Unfortunately, the default is one of aggression and even confrontation in our culture right now. Practice in small ways. The only way we as a society start to do better at this is if we begin to practice this in small ways. So one of the things I often say is we here are a community of practice. Even amongst folks who mostly agree with one another about most things, we have difference. So one of the things, the way we can practice these skills is practicing in small ways with people who mostly agree with us. We're still going to encounter difference. And then keep pushing the envelope. Push yourself to have more complex conversations with people who are more different than you. Okay. Yeah, I think we just covered this. Okay, so this is a question of how do I continue, well, this is it's almost identical language. How do I continue to advocate for vulnerable populations during this new Trump era that's coming? Well, I've spoken to this, I think. Both the energy of advocating. Yeah, I'm not going to say more about that, but thank you. Clearly identical, almost identical questions there. got a real spiritual one here. So moving from politics or civil society to theology. Do you believe in a soul? If so, what does it mean to you? Wow, I've done this for a long time. I've never gotten asked this question. Okay, so I will offer my periodic reminder that there is no requirement in Unitarian Universalism that anyone ever agree with me about anything. So you do not need to agree with me about any of the answers I offer today. You get to be in your own discernment process and decide what any of these questions might mean for you, including the question of whether there is a soul or not and what the concept might mean to you. Okay, so offering my periodic reminder. I don't know. Yeah, you know, I'm Hindu. I'm supposed to believe in the concept of a soul. I was raised with one, for sure. So why do I say I don't know? I believe I have experience of something that can endure beyond death. And there what I mean is relationship with those who I have loved and who have died. I know through my own experience that relationship does not end with death, and in fact that if I choose so, I can continue to be in relationship and that relationship can continue to grow and deepen. I was surprised by this. I think if you had asked me this question in my 20s, I would have not known how to even answer that, and I wouldn't be saying what I'm saying right now. I would have probably offered an answer along the lines of, well, when the physical body dies, it dies. That's what we know. And here I am decades later beyond that, and you know, one of my dearest mentors died when I was in my 30s. Beloved UU minister who took me under her wing and nurtured me. Some of you know I'm very good friends with her son to this day. And her name's Mary. And I have a relationship with Mary that has transcended her death. And I talk to her. There are moments when I can hear her voice answering me, often laughing at me, chiding me, and goading me, encouraging me to grow, or be amused at myself, even. And it's not only her, it's others who are in spirit. There are times when I can feel the energy and talk to and be in relationship with my grandparents. So is that a soul? I don't know the answer to that. It's something to me. I know there are other Unitarian Universalists who would say they've had the type of experience that I just related. Is that a soul, or is that energy? Is it essence? But that's the closest thing I can give you to an answer. Yeah. I think that experience leads me to a sense that there's something, I feel like there's death plus. Like death happens, physical death happens, and there's a plus. I don't know what the plus is. I don't. It's a mystery. Hey, we sang that, right? Life is a riddle and a mystery. There's a mystery. There's some big mystery beyond death. It's a plus sign. There's more. I don't really know what the more is, but there's more. I've experienced that there's more. Okay. I love this. I asked for concise. This is concise. How can I best help people? Yeah. I love the energy of that question. That's a beautiful question. Beautiful, beautiful impulse. So one of the things we are being present to in the modern era of justice organizing, gosh, this permeates everything. Some of you know I'm on the board of trustees for the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, our Unitarian Universalist International Human Rights Organization. It's in that work that this shows up. It should hopefully be in all of our social justice organizing work these days, because it's been well over a decade we've kind of worked with this question. We have brought an awareness as Unitarian Universalists that older models of help have not always been the best. Older models of helping can involve showing up as a people who know what an impacted community or an impacted population need, because we've decided what they need to flourish, thrive, be free. What our contemporary era of justice organizing and justice work shows us is that relationship comes before offering assistance. Relationship means that we get to know a community, they get to know us, and then we invite them. We ask others to share with us, well, what do you need to thrive, to succeed, to be free? And then we respond to those needs that others have expressed to us. This involves needing to let go of control, of controlling an outcome. It involves in-depth good listening. It involves building relationship as opposed to just showing up and wanting to help in the absence of relationship. So how best can you help? Cultivate relationship, friendship, meaningful connection. From there, be present, be a good listener. From there, invite the question, what do you need? How can I support you? Beautiful question, absolutely beautiful question. Love the simplicity of it too. Okay. Oh, this one's good too. Another theological question. I never get theological questions in the question box. I'm quite excited today. I find myself wanting to have faith, but the logical and scientific part of me tends to dismiss it as, oh, this is I like this too, spicy mindfulness, quote unquote, which helps in the present, but not with existential fears. How do you combat a logical mind with faith? Okay, combat. I don't know that combating is needed. So I'll reiterate the being mindful of language concepts of that embody aggression. You know, we don't resolve anything in ourselves by combating ourselves. It doesn't usually happen that way. So, yeah. Yeah, one of my teachers would say this, like, always watch how are we even thinking about the questions we're asking ourselves? It's worth noticing that, right? So there's a little bit here of the energy of like, you gotta wrestle with and fight yourself, and one part of this or the other's gotta win. I would invite that to relax. I think as I've gotten older, that doesn't work. It definitely doesn't work for me. I have to be present to the various parts of me that are saying something is important. So in this individual, one part of them is saying, honoring what they understand about science and how the world works scientifically, honoring that is important. Great. I would say that's true for most, if not maybe all Unitarian Universalists. It's a fundamental premise of our tradition that science and religion, spirituality, faith, that they can be fully meshed. It is a fundamental tenet of Unitarian Universalism, inherently a part of our approach. So yes, honor that. Please honor that. And wanting to honor that and honor faith, I think you can do both. In fact, I think that's very Unitarian Universalist to want to do both. Okay, so now let me get to your fundamental wrestling. I think it might have to do with how you are conceptualizing faith. Yeah. That's what I'm picking up on this. How you happen to be, however you're conceptualizing faith, you're juxtaposing it or putting it kind of at this kind of an angle with the scientific and logical. I don't know that I do that. Okay, so maybe you don't have to. I'll hold that as a possibility for you. So the way in which I don't do that, The word faith for me means trust. Can I trust the flow of life? Can I trust the environment in which I'm living in, which is another thing to say, another way of saying, can I trust the universe? Which is another way of saying, can I trust all the things that are outside of my control and agency, which, by the way, is the vast majority of everything around us, even though our ego wants to convince us we can have control. The reality is we have very little control, and yet find tremendous comfort in believing the exact opposite of that. So faith, or trust, for me, is a sense of, I'm okay. I can let go of control. I can let go of needing to be the writer or decider of every possible outcome connected to my life. I can trust the flow of life and let life unfold, and I will be okay. That is an article of faith, in that it's a belief. I cannot prove that science. Well, actually, I can. I could, if I really wanted to, look backwards at my own life, like a story writer, look backwards and say, hey, haven't I been okay? This hard thing happened in my 20s, this hard thing happened in my teens, this hard thing happened in my childhood. Bring it up forward. This hard thing happened with a friend dying, and hard thing happened needing to change jobs, hard thing happened needing to start over in a certain way. Hey, I've been through a lot of hard things. You probably have too. Notice that. Notice that you're okay on the other side of all of those things. And very likely, it should, I hope, engender a sense of trust in the flow of life. And that is how I, as a Unitarian Universalist, relate to the concept of faith, and there's no contradiction in that for me with honoring scientific truth and reality. Thank you. I got to puzzle that out with you a little bit in real time. Okay, definitely we can do one more. Let me see. Oh, yeah, okay, this is an interpersonal question. What are some good ways to keep loving and showing up for someone who, for deeply set reasons, isn't loving or showing up for themselves? Yeah, I know this question. I've got relatives that I wrestle with this around. It's a little bit connected to the last question in a way. Okay, I still wrestle with this, so I cannot claim that I have perfectly resolved how I am living into this question myself. But I know when I'm paying attention and I can catch myself, that the thing that brings up frustration, the thing that brings up anger, the thing that brings up resentment in these relationships where the other person is not loving, they're not taking ownership of their own need to learn and grow and evolve, they're stuck. It's my expectation. It's my desire that they grow and be different. So I have to do some work when that energy comes up of anger, frustration, resentment. Those are the most common feelings I have in this situation. I have to be the one that is catching it and kind of reminding myself that I am not in charge of another human being's destiny in the same way that I would bristle and rebel if another person tried to take ownership of my destiny. So if I expect that level of independence accorded to me, I have no right to be holding resentment and frustration about somebody else not learning and growing and being loving and being different. That is between them and whatever they consider the nature of reality. I can be sad. That is true. That's maybe even natural. Oh, so much potential wasted. This person could be doing more with their life, perhaps, if they could evolve, see, grow, learn. Sadness is fine. Sadness is natural. But if we're feeling frustration, if we're feeling resentment, if we're feeling anger, that's about us and our expectation for this other person. We need to let that go. So how can we be loving, which is a great part of this question, and hold on lightly to or even fully release expectations about how other people are going to be? That's the only solution I've come to around this kind of situation, and there too, I have to work at it. It is not a natural thing for me. All right, I'm going to take one last question. Okay, how do I maintain positivity when it seems that many in our nation are driven by hatred and individualism? Oh, I have another teacher whose voice is in my head. So notice here, maintain positivity. Like you're trying to you want to force yourself to be positive. I don't know that that's necessarily all of the picture. So what one of my teachers would say, she's grounded in the Buddhist tradition, talks about it as the heart of sadness. It is appropriate to witness hatred, to witness the selfishness that individualism at its extreme can turn into, and be sad. That too is natural. And in fact, if we are grounded in love, if we are really grounded in caring, how can you not but feel sad at seeing such sentiments and behavior in the world around us? Being sad is appropriate. We can and should individually and collectively find ways to normalize that and be okay with that. Now, where do you find possibility? Rather than hope or positivity, I like the word possibility better, because that keeps things open. You know, we want to be open to what's still possible. Even though there is hatred, even though there is individualism taken to its extreme, selfishness, hoarding, greediness, all of that, more is possible for humanity and with the best of what the human spirit can do. I think we start small. There too, we start small. Do small things, do what is possible for you in your life. Be that goodness, embody it. That is the best thing you can do. When we do small acts of kindness, of goodness in the world, our spirit, essence, soul, heart sings. Who we are on the inside loves it when we offer unconditional kindness, goodness, caring, love to others around us and to the world. We know when we're in that zone because we feel it. And of course, we don't do kind and good things because of that alone, because it makes us feel better, but it does. We feel good about who we are. We feel good about how we're showing up in the world. Through that, you're actually creating the positivity that you're longing for. So I would offer that a heart of sadness is appropriate in these times. If you're good-hearted, if you're a loving person, how can you not feel sadness occasionally, if not maybe even often, at the state of the world today? And return and return again to the goodness that resides inside of you. Find small ways. The person next to you, a friend, a spouse, say something gracious, do something kind, and watch the difference that it makes in their life. It does. And in making a difference in their life, you're making a difference in your own life as well. Thank you. I appreciate each of you. Thank you for these beautiful questions.
Thank you, Reverend Manish. Folks, I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and turn in our teal hymnal to number 1028 to join in singing our closing hymn, The Fire of Commitment, hymn number 1028. From the light of days remembered, birds a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
Beloveds, as we start a new week, enter it holding the promise of these beautiful questions that you collectively submitted. That spirit, that yearning of wanting to live into the very best potential that each person here has is a good and beautiful thing. Hold it dear in your heart, for it is precious. It represents the very best of what each of us as Unitarian Universalists are and can be. Go forth, be the presence of love and goodness in the world around you until we are together again. May it be so. Amen.